Hey everybody, welcome back to the DPS RodCast for week 2 of the college football season. (2024) we are underway with our first week of games. Everybody has played a game, although some of them I wouldn't call games. In fact, many of them I wouldn't call games. A lot of 70-point games, 65 points, blowouts, 63-3, and things like this. Not what you would call games, really, but we got started. We had a lot of fun, and we did have some closer matchups that actually turned out to be really intriguing stories or games, right? So one was an intriguing story. That would be Florida State. And a good game, if you're watching the game. And another, intriguing story in Miami against University of Florida, trying to, the whole college football world sort of trying to will the Miami Hurricanes back into somewhere where they're relevant in the national conversation, and keep hoping that happens. They got a quarterback who Josh Prey might have said it best. They said he looks like he's going light speed in slow motion. Which is a good sign for a quarterback that is seeing the field. Exciting stuff, unless you're a Florida Gator fan or somebody like myself who's a Clemson fan and his team can't even muster anything but a field goal. I know Georgia's good, but come on. That's ridiculous. Come on, man. Yeah, I know Georgia's a good team, but so what? I mean, we used to score 40 points on everybody. We beat Alabama by 21 points in the national championship game not too long ago. By 21 against Nick Saban. And we can't muster but a field goal. So, yeah, very frustrated for us Clemson fans, and the college football world is having a great time with it. The hate for Dabo Swinney is real, and it's, the vitriol comes out. It's, they've been waiting for us to fall. So here we are. We are 0-1, and Florida State is 0-2. The Portal Kings, right? We get a lot of grief about our not use of the portal. The Portal King Florida State Seminoles also get thumped. They, both those teams I mentioned decide to play real teams in the opening weeks and have to take all the smoke because they didn't come through. So some of you fan bases, your time's coming. Don't worry, your time is coming. So and then we had USC and LSU. Talk about a great game. That was really great. Miller Moss officially announcing his presence after staying around behind Caleb Williams, and seems to be, a good decision. Really, exciting playmakers on the USC team. Kyron Lacey, really great job for LSU. They look like a good team too, and maybe both of those teams will make some noise. USC in its brand new conference, the Big Ten, and LSU in the SEC not West, right? No more SEC West for LSU. So if you watched any of the RodCast that we did, you know that LSU was Rodney's pick for SEC champion, in part because of their schedule they played this year compared to other SEC contenders. I don't think LSU will be good enough to win the SEC, but they did look competent on defense a little bit. So we shall see, where we wind up. They're 0-1, but SEC schedule full in front of them, and you can have a loss no matter what conference you're in. Even FSU at 0-2 still has everything to play for in front of them because there's a 12-team playoff this year. If they can somehow figure out a way to get up off the ground. If you watch that game, today is Tuesday. The game was last night, Monday. It ended week 1. Really intriguing game to me because DJ Uyunglele, he looked terrible early on. Just absolutely awful. He was off on his throws. Just looked terrible. His feet are like concrete back there. And, they've got him where he's not running around anymore, so he just doesn't seem to have a feel. But then all of a sudden, he just started making throws, and the throw to the tight end in the back of the end zone was a tremendous throw on the back shoulder in the end zone with the man covered. They just got beat by a good play right there. FSU had several chances to take over that game, but the difference was their defense, once the offense started getting rolling, the tight end let them down with a couple of key drops, and then the defense collapsed. The offensive line just wore out FSU's defense. Boston College's offensive line just leaned on them. Yeah, Thomas Castellanos, he was excellent for Boston College. He only had 106 yards passing, but he had 73 yards on the ground, and that's exactly what you need from your quarterback to open things up, to loosen up the defense, and Florida State had no answer. 263 yards rushing, 5 yards a carry, 52 rushes last night for Boston College, and they wear out Florida State in Tallahassee. Boston College were the ones who had the cramps and the problems from the Florida heat, and yet Florida State was the one who crumbled because their defense just couldn't get a stop. Once DJU started making throws, big problems there in Florida State, but like I said, things are still in front of them because of a new playoff format. Now, it's kind of laughable to even think about it, but I tried to warn you guys. A 9-3 team, an 8-4 team can crash your playoff party now by winning their conference. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, a lot of parity in the ACC. Maybe we have a 3-loss or 4-loss conference champion in the ACC with all the parity at the lower levels, at the mid and lower levels. I don't think there's a lot of parity at the top level. It's a couple of teams, There's just a couple of teams there, but at the mid and lower levels, we could have something like this. We could start seeing college football look like the NFL, where you've got 3 or 4 or 5-loss teams that are, actually making it into the playoffs and actually able to win playoff games. I can't see how it's possible with Florida State, but you never know. I mean, stranger things have happened in my lifetime. I wouldn't completely rule it out. I certainly wouldn't, bet my mortgage payment on it. That's for sure. On it not happening. Same with my team, Clemson. Our struggles to get a first down. Now we have the entire season ahead of us to get things corrected and figure things out. And who knows? Maybe we come up with some kind of magic and run through the ACC. You never know. Sillier things have happened. I know everybody wants to bury everybody after week 1, and that's fine. Let them bury us, but there's a new game in town, so one of these days, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but one of these days, someone's going to step up late and surprise some people. So looking over the games that I watched, I didn't get a chance to watch as much as I wanted to because I had to work this weekend, but I did watch the University of Miami. Very impressed with Cam Ward. I did watch the USC LSU game. I already had my thoughts on that. I think, really, really improved defenses there. I think, and can I say I know? No, I can't. Not off one data point. I didn't see the Michigan game, but from the analysts that I've listened to, Alex Orji's not the answer for Michigan at quarterback. It's looking like. So they got Texas rolling into town this week in the biggest week 2 game of the season, or in the biggest week 2 game, and their quarterback situation is a little bit shaky. So offensive line didn't look good apparently, and so we'll see. Rodney likes Michigan, so we'll see. Penn State, I did watch the Penn State, West Virginia, some of that. I also flipped over to that when I got frustrated with my Tigers. Didn't get a chance to watch, by the way, Penn State looks like Penn State to me. I mean, they just look like the same team. We'll see. I mean, everybody's very much excited about the offense. They've changed with Kolinicki as offensive coordinator. We'll see. Again, one data point. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. I unfortunately missed that game. I haven't had a chance to get back and watch it. I did hear a lot of the stories about it. Basically, Texas A&M, a lot of the analysts had said they were concerned about how Texas A&M was going to score. They didn't know how Notre Dame was going to score either. A lot of people taking the under, for the experts, and they were right, 23-13. Apparently there was a point in the game where, Notre Dame needed to step up and make a play to take the game back over, and they were able to do it on the road, which is very impressive. In Kyle Field, difficult place to win. That bodes well for Notre Dame, and we should see Notre Dame in the playoffs this year because their schedule does not look as daunting as some of the other contenders. So we'll see. That's the beauty of it. We've got more games to play. So that's the quick rundown of the things that I saw and noticed. Anything else that jumps out at me, any players that jump out at me. I didn't watch a lot of the 70-0 games. I did catch a little bit of Alabama, because I'm a fan, but didn't see Tennessee. Watched some of the Oklahoma game. A little concerned about Oklahoma's offensive line from what I saw when the SEC play starts, which is, I believe, next week. So a little concerned for Oklahoma. I think they've got great skill players. I'm concerned about the line of scrimmage for Oklahoma, which is similar to what everybody thought going in. Not much to say about anybody else on offense. We will see. Oregon had a tough outing. So that's it for the week 1. Here's the week 1 top 25 versus top 25 matchups. We talked about the Clemson versus Georgia game. there's prop bet on what year Clemson's actually going to score a touchdown against Georgia again. We used to actually play Georgia pretty well in the 80s and 90s when that was a rivalry. I mean, that was a good game. Georgia had the better of it in history, that's for sure. But there were some really good Georgia versus Clemson games. And, that one was just an embarrassment. So, Clemson offense leaves a lot to be desired. Clemson defense has to get the linebacker position figured out. Rodney misses on his call that Clemson would cover that spread. Not win the game, but cover the spread. They were not even close to covering. Notre Dame and Texas A&M, we talked about that. Rodney was on Texas A&M favorite side in this game by about 1.5 points. He thought Texas A&M by 4, and he got 2.5 and took the loss there. Notre Dame gets that win, the higher ranked team, so the public was correct on that one. USC, LSU, I think most of the money was on LSU. Rodney was on USC. Rodney gets the win there. That's the only win of the week, and he starts the season 1-2 on his AP Top 25 matchups. For this coming week, week 2, we've only got the 2 games in the top 25 that pit 2 top 25 teams. Texas A&M, Texas at Michigan. We talked about that game. Rodney, you see the double asterisk there. Rodney actually thinks Michigan wins the game outright. This is where Rodney will get a big correction because, as you know, we talk about, Rodney doesn't use transfer portals, draft players. He attempts to figure out based on trajectories from previous years, and Michigan was a great team last year at the end of the year, so they're getting too much credit. But we'll see. He's got Michigan. I would not, if you're out there, I would not tail this bet. I would not tail any bets actually from Rodney, to be honest, until I start to get some data because of the transfer portal stuff. But I'm going to play my own money as I study all of this stuff. But we're week 4, week 5, we start to get some data. I expect Rodney to be a little more accurate. Tennessee versus NC State, and Rodney is on the favored Volunteers to actually cover the 7.5. Would have loved to get a 7 on that one, but we bet it. As you can see, the green check mark means that it's actually a play. And by the way, anything that I call a play, if you're not familiar with the RodCast, anything that I call a play, my actual real money is on that game. My real money. I don't have sponsors. I don't ask for tips. It's my own money. I don't have any sponsors. It's my money. So my money is on Tennessee this week to cover against NC State as one of our plays. So that's the plays for week 2. Sorry, that's the AP Top 25 matchups. Sadly, slim pickings on there. Hopefully we will get more of these as the season wears on. How did we do last week in our DPS plays? Before I go to that, let me show you just this real quick. A little bit. So those of you who follow along know about the GSA, which is our grading system for every game. It's a opponent adjusted efficiency matrix that I use, the GSA. I came up with it years ago. And it's shown to be one of the most accurate ways of predicting outcomes of games. And the each individual performance by a team is graded. And these are the teams, this list right here that you see, are the teams that had their very best individual game grade, which is combined offense and defense. Individual game, I don't do special teams, by the way. Individual game grade in week 1 that they've had for the last half a year. So from the middle of 2023 season to now, who's had their very best grade in week 1? And you can see some of the teams that came out and really were impressive in week 1. Alabama had their best grade that they've had in a half a year. Arizona State, surprisingly, Rodney was way down on Arizona State. I think it's one of my team total under bets for the year is Arizona State. I think that one's going to get blown away. Fresno State had their best performance that they've had in a year. Georgia against Clemson was Georgia's best performance in half a year. So that's bad news when Georgia is improving. And then basically that's what we're trying to get across with this is the teams that are maybe will show improvement this year from where they were last year. That's what the purpose of what I'm showing you here is. How accurate is it going to be? Who knows, because the teams they're playing may actually be well overrated by Rodney, our AI engine. They may be well overrated, so their grade's going to look higher right now than it will later in the season. But in general, so just to be clear, we had 4-team playoff last year. 3 of the 4 playoff teams that made it to the playoffs last year had their best grade of the previous half year last year in week 1, right? So Texas had their best grade that they'd had in a half a year. Washington had their best grade that they'd had in a half a year. Alabama and Washington and Texas had their best grade last year in week 1 that they'd had since the middle of 2022. So it was showing that, hey, these teams might be even better than they were in 2022. And sure enough, they were. So that's the only reason I show this is that, it's kind of week 1 grading stuff is who knows how accurate it's going to wind up being. But, hey, is Boston College really as good as what their grade was? Well, they're getting the benefit of a Florida State team from last year that was pretty good, and this year maybe is trash. Who knows? Maybe he's not very good. So, it's a little bit weird, but you can see teams like Nebraska on there. Everybody's saying watch out for Nebraska. Miami, maybe they're improved. Maybe Maryland's better than we thought they were going to be. And Vanderbilt with Pavia, the quarterback Pavia. So Vanderbilt with the shocking upset of Virginia Tech. Really the upset of the week was Vanderbilt. Great job by them. I don't think Virginia Tech is going to be a terrible team. I think they're they're going to be a reasonably good team, and Vanderbilt beat them in week 1. Pavia is looking like Doug Flutie out there, so the second coming of Doug Flutie. So those are the teams that stepped up in week 1 in a big way. So for what it's worth, we'll see. Last year, as I said, 3 of the 4 playoff contenders were on this list, this short list right here. And as you know, there's no FCS. There's no teams that played FCS teams on here. So they're unable to be on this list, maybe just because they played an FCS team, but maybe some other teams like Ole Miss, who had a tremendous showing in week 1, should be on this list, but they won't be because I don't do FCS stuff. How'd we do last week in the DPS plays now? So we move on. Unfortunately, we had a losing week, 5-6. Not bad, not terrible. 1.84 units. I'm going to go by units this year because when the account gets low, I don't bet an entire unit. So I'm going to be showing my wins and losses per unit. So 1.84 units. Lost last week on a 5-6 week. We did lose a little bit of money on the plays, and then we did lose our 3-team money line parlay. Last week we had Coastal Carolina winning as an upset winner. That was a huge win. We had Texas. We had the North Texas win. That was another big one. And the one that didn't come through, which is actually they were only down by 1 in the middle of the third quarter, but then they got blown out in the end of the third and the fourth quarter, was Ohio, the Bobcats of Ohio against Syracuse. That was our third one. Had that come through, that would have been $366 on a $10 bet because of the huge odds on the Ohio game. The huge underdog there, but did not come through for us, so we're down $10 on our parlays. Might as well just throw that one up real quick. Here's my parlay for this week. Again, it's always money line. It's always on an underdog. It's always 3 teams, and it's always 3 underdogs. So here's the 3 underdogs for this week. The largest underdog being Army, the Black Knights, playing Florida Atlantic. I'm not too keen on this one. I think Florida Atlantic's massively improved this year, but we will see. $10 on this one only wins you 96 this week because of much lower odds, so as you can see. But still, $96, nothing to sneeze at. That gets you through most of the year, and these $10 parlays every week. It's just for fun. We see if we hit a couple of them. We haven't hit one in a long time. I think we're due. We had 4 of our DPS upsets come in last week, but I didn't pick the right ones for my 3-team parlay. So as usual, I picked 3 of them that were wrong. So one of them that was wrong. I had two right, 1 wrong. And there was a couple of other ones that came in that weren't on my list. So every week I try to pick the ones that I think are, maybe highest return or, maybe most probable, and do a 3-team parlay off of them. And I just haven't been able to hit it. But that's the parlay for week 2. And as far as the plays go, here's what we did last week. 5-6. We've already talked about a lot of these games. The ones that I think Rodney was most off on, some of them are not. No embarrassment to some of them, but the Florida one, he was off massively on that one. Rodney was, and the FSU and South Carolina was another one. He was way off on that. As I mentioned before, South Carolina has been notorious for having troubles in covering games against Group of 5 teams. And once again, they did not cover against a Group of 5 team. They'll go out probably and either beat Kentucky or, play well against Kentucky this week. And, this will be forgotten. But they did not look good offensively. Very poor. Lenora Sellers had a tough first outing for Gamecocks. But the FSU, being so far off on FSU, that was kind of shocking. Okay, so By the way, in terms of that transfer portal thing that we talked about, these ranges that I bet right here, in previous years, Rodney had been 64% in these ranges positively. And as you can see, either it's a 1-year thing, a 2-year thing, because I lost last year too on week 1. But the transfer portal possibly is causing Rodney's method to not be effective because Rodney doesn't guess. Rodney just uses box score statistics, and that's it. But I'm betting them because it's my fun. It's my hobby. Week 2. Here's the week 2 plays. Again, these are ranges that Rodney, for week 2, over the past several years, in week 2, positive results. Another one, 62% in these ranges over the last several years. Now, will he be 62% now in these ranges? We'll see. It's anybody, with the way teams are changing more than they ever did before. I suspected that these numbers might go down, and sure enough, so far they have. But these are the plays that I have already bet them, actually. These are minus 110s, as suspected. Tuesday morning, we do our lock-in of the spreads. We got Arkansas plus 7 against Oklahoma State. And don't forget, this has nothing to do with their game from last week against Arkansas Pine Bluff, because Rodney doesn't even look at that game. So this is just last year's data, Oklahoma State versus Arkansas, and he's saying Arkansas will cover 7 points against Oklahoma State. Tennessee, we already talked about that one. They cover as a favorite. How about Colorado against Nebraska? We already saw Nebraska on the list of teams that had their best performance in the last half year in week 1. So maybe Nebraska is a trending up team, and Rodney hasn't caught up yet. We'll see. Nebraska with mini Mahomes there, freshman Mahomes, I guess. Raiola, the quarterback, maybe they're going to be so improved. But I like some things I saw from Colorado. We'll see. There's some holes there for sure in Colorado, but can they cover 7.5? We'll see. Kansas State over against Tulane, covering a pretty big number, 9.5 against Tulane. Boise State and Oregon. So the wise guy bettors, I would say, are going to stay away from Boise State on this one. Yeah, that number is increasing. It was 18, I think, when it opened. It's up to 19 now. A lot of people jumping on Oregon because of their bad performance last week. They're going to take it out on Boise State, who didn't have a good defense last year. They think Oregon uses it as a get-right game. Rodney says, no, Boise State's capable of covering that 19. So I think this is one, if I have, my method is always to bet on Tuesday. If I bet on Friday, if I bet on Saturday, I bet I could get a much better number for this one, because I think all the money's going on Oregon. This one's going to be a 20, 21, 22, 24 game by the time, I think a lot of money going on Oregon because they think they're going to get right against Boise State. Oh, my Tigers. I'm betting against my Tigers this week against Appalachian State. Thankfully, it doesn't have Appalachian State winning the game outright as an underdog, because I don't want to put Clemson on my underdog parlay. But Appalachian State plus 18 against Clemson, and you got to think about it. How's Clemson going to score? I mean, we're just struggling with offense. We are struggling. So Rodney says, you're struggling with offense. Appalachian State's improved. We'll see there. And then Troy, Memphis is a favorite by many to take the group of 5 spot in the playoffs. And Troy is expected to drop off. I think that's reflected in the number, plus 18. That's a big number for a team like Troy from the Sun Belt. We'll see how Rodney does on that one. 5-6 for the year. We'll see if we can get you back some of those units we lost in week 1. Get me back. And that is it for the week 2 RodCast. Once again, I'm Dan DeSetto for the DPS All Football Talk RodCast. Here every week, betting my own money on these games without a sponsor, without asking for tips, without anything like that. And tail the bets with caution if you plan to do that, especially in the early weeks when things are changing so rapidly in college football. In the early weeks, Rodney does not have a lot of data on these teams. We're using a computer to do these selections. The early weeks are tough. So Rodney's percentage against the spread in week 1 for the last 2 years has been down from what it was historically. So week 2, we'll see. Down. So anyways, I'm Dan DeSetto. We will see you next week on the RodCast to see how we did, and hope you enjoy the week 2 action in college football. NFL kicking off in 2 days. Kansas City, Baltimore. Should be a great one. We'll see you next Tuesday. Dan out.